Good evening, everyone, or afternoon, I guess. Hope everyone's doing fine. I've been kind of out of pocket working, staying busy, and I just delivered in Tifton, Georgia, and I'm on my way back to Oklahoma. Do it again. Just keep making those rounds. But I've been kind of behind here on doing anything or creating anything, so I figured I would while I had a little time, and I was cruising along here. There's quite a few things that's come about, I guess, since the last time I made a show, so here we are. I guess Donald Trump decided he wanted to go on some racist trope, I guess, early in the morning, like he does when he tweets out things. And so he depicted Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes. And it's funny, if you watch Fox News, they try to defend it, and, you know, a lot of the Republicans, these MAGAs, they try to defend that. Oh, well, it wasn't racist. Yeah, that's like the epitome of racism. It's like every kind of racism you've ever seen since the beginning of time. He can say what he wants. I mean, but it's obvious. Like if you look back at who he really is and what he's always been about, and you read just a few news articles, I mean, I guess it's to be expected from someone like him. So, excuse me. It's kind of like, the guy that didn't want any people of color living in his buildings that had his name on it, and he was being sued, and the guy that goes around and goes, all these shithole countries, and hey, why can't we get more white people in our country and quit taking people from these shithole countries, I guess, where people of color live, So, I mean, at this point, like, everybody can just kind of look and go, well, this is to be expected, but, he's not going to apologize for it. I don't know that he'll ever apologize for anything he's ever done. I remember there was an interview long ago, and of course he comes as a Christian movement. This whole MAGA thing is supposed to be a religious movement. We can talk a lot about religion, because there's a big difference in religion and relationship. There's a lot of different religions: Catholic, Methodist, Presbyterian, Lutheran, Baptist, Muslim. Those are all religions, but there's a difference in religion and relationship, and I've said it and I'll say it again, the Jesus that I know would fashion a whip and run all these people out of office, so it's kind of crazy. I see a lot of little memes and things where people go, well, he would deport Jesus, and then of course we got the Super Bowl, which kind of further pushes the narrative of his racism and this whole racist agenda on the far right over there. And I'm not saying that like everybody's that way, but it sure feels that way. It sure kind of lines up like that. A lot of times when you look at it, it's like, oh, the halftime show, we had the Super Bowl, had the halftime show. They went and formed their own separate little halftime show, because we don't want to do a halftime show where we don't understand what the person's saying, the language in America is English. Well, I got news for them. The language in America was not always English. It was probably Spanish, among many other diverse languages of the indigenous Native American people, before people got on a boat and came here and did all the atrocious things that happened over history. And I mean, I'm going to give you a history lesson to go into it, but everyone associates the Native Americans or the Indians with scalping people and doing all these different things. Well, they learned that from the white settlers that came and would scalp them and cut their testicles off and use the sack for their tobacco pouches and things like that. So, I mean, they kind of learned that from the people that came here. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said there, you know. So, but I didn't seem to have a problem with the halftime show. It seemed quite patriotic and seemed kind of like American to me. He's carrying flags of all the people over here in this part of the country, in the Americas, North, Central, and South America. And he mentioned Canada, the United States, and all of this. And there's a big banner up there, you know, that says, you know, love can overcome hate, basically, you know. So didn't really see a problem with it, you know. And I find it ironic, like Turning Point USA is supposed to be this Charlie Kirk thing, and it's all supposed to be this Christian thing and a Christian movement, but yet the singers that they pick, one of them, you know, like Kid Rock, looks like the epitome of someone that is just greasy, slimy, and like you would meet on the street that are dropping needles in the street, you know, like looks like a total heroin addict. And he's sings songs like it's not, you know, pedophilia, you know, sleeping with underage children, basically, you know, little girls, young women. It's not statutory, it's mandatory. So, I mean, could you have found like a better choice, you know, for people to do your concert? But I think it's funny. I mean, it's like, it's just a joke. I mean, it's we've been dealing with it for so long now. It's just to be expected, you know. You know, when you have the mentality of people like that, that's what you get. So, you know, and then and we have the Epstein files. Should they really be called the Epstein files? At this point, like, Jeffrey Epstein's dead, and I get that he's like the center person of all these things going on, but when a man's name's mentioned over 38,000 times in just the half of the files that were released, should they not be the Donald Trump files? That's my question, you know. And are we going to ever get to the bottom of this? I doubt it. I really very seriously doubt it, because the Deputy Attorney General that's over the Department of Justice is Trump's attorney. It's his old attorney. And he comes out and says, oh, well, he wasn't mentioned in the files and all of these things. And he controls Kash Patel and the FBI, you know, and he's got all these FBI agents that could be doing better things than what they're doing, but they're basically, from what I understand, was commissioned to go in there and redact names. And, you know, if you've watched anything but Fox News, you've realized that they've redacted a lot of the perpetrators' names, a lot of the people that were mentioned over and over again in the files that were, you know, considered to be, and that have been spoke out by some of these victims as being predators, and they're redacting their names, but they've not redacted some of the victims' names. And that was all they were supposed to do. Anything that still had a pending case or that was being investigated, they could redact that. And they were supposed to redact the victims' names. But yet they're victimizing the victims again by not redacting their names. It's kind of crazy to me. But I mean, if you think you're going to get full transparency from the attorney, the ex-attorney of Donald Trump, who's now his attorney only, he's his Justice Department director, you know, one of the assistant director of the Department of Justice. Wonder how he got that position. And then you got Kash Patel. That's a whole joke right there, running the FBI. You know, you've got all these hand-picked people that are Donald Trump loyalists, but they're the ones that are redacting names and going over the files. And it's funny to me how, like, let's look back to Bill Cosby. I always thought Bill Cosby was a pretty good dude. Watched some of his shows when I was growing up, you know, The Cosby Show, and listened to him when he was a comedian, and he really didn't cuss. He didn't really, you know, he just didn't really seem to be, you know, he didn't use profanity. If he had to use profanity, he'd always say, like, filth, floor, and filth. And he said things like that. Seemed like a pretty decent guy. And, you know, they prosecuted him and put his ass in jail with with no DNA evidence, very little evidence of any sort other than victim testimonies. And I mean, we should listen to the victims and believe, what they're saying or something. But I mean, him being a popular person and, being at the status he was and having money and things, sometimes you kind of have to go, well, are these people targeting him? Maybe they're trying to look for a payday or something. So, you kind of have to take that into consideration. But at the same time, he was convicted on the testimony. But in the Epstein files, there's testimony after testimony that links Donald Trump to some pretty disgusting things. And they come out and tell us, oh, there's no credible evidence. There wasn't anything credible we could use, that would justify us bringing a case against him. So is that a two-tier justice system? Bill Cosby gets convicted and gets a trial and goes to court and is convicted on the testimony of women coming forth saying these things happened. But women came forth and gave a statement to a federal agent in the FBI, and if you lie to a federal agent, it's a felony. They came forth and gave a depiction and gave a testimony, and I guess it was just never followed up on. How come he's not in court? How come he didn't at least go to court? I mean, you should at least build a case and take it and let a grand jury decide if there's an indictment. You should at least take it to 12 people and let them look at what's laid out there and decide whether or not 12 people agree to acquit or to, find guilty or whatever. But it never happened, And that just goes to show you. It just goes to show you that, like, if you're a high-up political figure, you have lots of money, you have a lot of power, there's a difference. There's a difference in the justice that you'll face and the justice that everybody else faces. Look at Jeffrey Epstein in his case in Florida. 18 months for 32 counts of basically pedophilia, where he was messing with underage girls. 32 counts, 18 months. And then he didn't even really go to a jail. He was in a jail, but he got released every day from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, got to go work and do stuff. He still had young interns coming in, helping him do paperwork and doing God knows what. I mean, it's a whole different tier of justice. And then I find it ironic, too, that if you look, now that they've released some of these files, if you go over to another country, they're not having trials and convicting these people of anything, but they're forcing them out of office. They're forcing them to resign. They're forcing them to step down. Prince Andrew is stripped of his titles, and of course he's just sent to a less kingdom than the big kingdom, but they're at least, because they realize how it looks. They realize how shameful, that it would make them look as a country and as a government and as a democracy if they let these people stay in power after they've been mentioned in here and it doesn't look so good for them, And not in America, though. Not in America. We don't hold people accountable for that, right? Or at least not Donald Trump. At least not Peter Thiel. At least not Elon Musk. At least not Bill Gates. Should I go on? Because there's a long list of people that were described doing some pretty sick, disgusting things. It's never investigated. It was swept under the rug, and now the names are being redacted, and we're not releasing everything. And yeah, I mean, when there's that many files, I guess it takes those thousands of FBI agents to get Donald Trump's name scratched out of there. And what's funny is, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. You don't have to stretch the imagination to realize that. And you watch the Republicans over there, and, they're downplaying all of it. They're doing this, And there's a few of them that come and spoke out about his racist trope, and they said, man, I don't really want to be associated with that. Well, they're going to have to get off the Trump train pretty quick because the midterms are coming, man. They're going to have to get on the side of right because people are they're just not going to put up with it anymore, man. People are tired of it. His poll numbers are slipping. They should have got off that train a long time ago. I mean, they just chose the wrong person to follow after and to put up on a pedestal because, like, and you know they got to be wondering that when they lay in bed at night, when they go home and they're laying there and they're thinking, man, why did I get on the side of this? This guy's just, there's something not wrong with him. There's something just not right with him. There's something wrong with him. His freaking elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. Like, there's something mentally wrong with him. There's something socially wrong with him. There's something morally wrong with him. And this is the guy that we chose to get on the side of and hold up and put on a pedestal. And he's going to be the death of all of them, you know, and that's it. But it doesn't stop here. Watch. Hide and watch. It gets better. It'll get better and better and better the further we go. And I believe that because I believe that like he cannot control what's really in his heart anymore. Like used to, he could kind of play his little game and be convincing and be charismatic and do all that. But there's something mentally going on with him to where whatever's in his heart, it just comes out of his mouth now. And when he's sitting there posting, whatever's going on inside of him and who he really is starting to really shine through. And it's like he has no control of it. There's no filter anymore. And people said, well, we like Donald Trump because there's no filter. Oh, no, it was filtered. It was filtered, you know. And there was a point in time, like my sister even came and said, well, I remember you was talking and you were praying and you were like, I'm thankful to God that he's brought somebody that's going to try to take care of our country and you know, and fix some of these bad things and all this. And I won't lie to you, like I kind of fell into that trap, you know. It says in the Bible that the Antichrist will come and he will deceive even the elect of God. And like, I don't believe that he's necessarily the Antichrist. I believe he's Antichrist, but I don't think he's the Antichrist. We'll just put it that way. Because if you do research, the persons of sin to sin, and there's like lots of things that's kind of fit together. But, you know, but I believe him and his whole administration are deep down just using Christianity and using religion for their own wealth and power and political gain. And there's not a Christian bone in their body. So, you know, that's just my opinion. It says you're not supposed to judge people. Judge ye not lest ye be judged. But at the same time, it says, by their fruits you will know them. And there's none of these guys there that are bearing any good fruit whatsoever. It's all bad, rotten fruit. So, I mean, let's just face it. You know, this is, in my opinion, the worst thing that's ever happened to our country. And I was deceived a lot too, you know. And it makes me madder than it makes anybody else. I don't care. You know, people can go, well, some of these people voted for him and they shouldn't have done that. We were warning them, okay? And we're mad. And then there's people that, you know, that actually, I didn't vote for him, but I was deceived by him, you know, and I kind of believed what he said. And there's nothing that makes me madder and gets me more upset than when somebody just flat lies to you. They just lie, you know. I can't stand when someone lies. And he said there, well, we're going to get the worst of the worst. Well, man, we can all agree to that. You know, no one wants killers and rapists and mental institution patients and shit like that running the streets, do we? You know, we don't want pedophiles running around, do we? You know, but then when you look and you think about it and you start putting two and two together, you're like, hey, you know, there's no sanctuary city there's no true sanctuary city for immigrants. These people that are going out picking fruits and working and mowing lawns and doing the jobs that most Americans don't want to. There's no sanctuary city for them because you got these goons running in there and upsetting their apple carts and grabbing them up, whether they're citizens or not, and detaining them and just wreaking havoc on them. There's no sanctuary city for them, but there seems to be a sanctuary city. And it's a sanctuary city for criminals and pedophiles and rapists and killers and mental institution patients. And it's the sanctuary city of the United States government and of the rich elite. And none of us live there. Only people like Donald Trump and his sort of people live there. Only these government people live there. Only these rich elite people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and and people like that live there, right? The Peter Thiels of the world, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. And I think it's funny too, that, oh, well, he committed suicide. And then you get to looking into it and you're like, his death certificate was filed on record on date, one day before he even supposedly committed suicide. And if you study, they had put him in a cell with a guy that was known for brutalizing and beating and hurting pedophiles. So, but that guy even came out and talked and said that Jeffrey had told him that his life was in danger. These guys wanted him because he had a lot of information and all this, and then Jeffrey turns up dead, and now you got Ghislaine Maxwell coming out basically getting her message to the president and Bill Clinton and people like that. Hey, you want me to talk and clear your name? Then I want clemency. Really? What happens if you don't get clemency and you get to spend 20 years in jail? Do you come out and talk the opposite? Could you believe anything she said? And then when they question her, she pleads the fifth, which I guess she has a right to do that. But she's not talking. Why would she? Why would she come out and tell the truth unless she's getting a deal? That's the only card that she's got to ever get a pardon, get clemency, get anything for her part in these crimes. And it's funny that Jeffrey got picked up, and it's funny that she got picked up, and it's funny, all this went down. But the guy that's name was mentioned over 38,000 times, he didn't get picked up. He's not being deposed. He's not being questioned. He's not in the hot seat. Shouldn't he have to answer questions? They're calling Bill and Hillary Clinton to answer questions. Why shouldn't all of these people that were ever mentioned in the files be answering questions and getting answers and figuring out what's going on? It's because we have that two-tier justice system, right? That's what it really is. But, I've talked before about Trump derangement syndrome and things like this. And, I do believe it's a real thing. Yeah, I believe it's a real thing because when that man talks, I want to throw up. Everything that comes out of his mouth is sick, demented, and a lie. Everything that comes from his administration is a sick, twisted, demented lie. The media that they control, like Fox News and Newsmax, that's on the side of them, is all a bunch of falsehoods and lies and softball questions and things like that to them. And if you turn off Fox and you turn on any other news media anywhere, you might get a shred of the truth. And I'm not saying they're telling the whole truth, but you're going to get closer to the truth. But if you turn that on, anything Trump says is the gospel. And they would literally throw their own bomb in prison than to admit Trump's ever done anything wrong and that he's not just the greatest thing that ever happened to our country and all this. It's like, what does he have on them people? Is it that he controls their purse strings? Does he have blackmail evidence against the owner of the news network to where, and it's funny, even people that are not even on that news anymore, he's even got control of them, but they used to be on Fox News. Is it just something in the water over there that you drink at Fox or Newsmax or something like that gets in you and does something to your mind where you're just on that bandwagon and you can't get off? It's like you're addicted to lies and stupidity. I don't understand it, because I remember a time when Megyn Kelly was like giving him crap about, she was actually asking him some hard questions about his treatment of women and grabbing women by the pussies and things like this, and him being so degrading towards women. And she was like actually coming on out, and then he made comments about her, being on her cycle and bleeding or something out of everywhere, and he's made all these sick comments towards women, and like, it sounds like a real Christian man to me. It sounds like a Christian movement, but then even now she doesn't do that. So what kind of control does he have over her now that she defends everything he says, even to the point of being borderline racist and defending his racist tropes and things? It's like, Come on, people, man, wake up. It goes so much more deep, you know. It goes so much more deep than these people just being, you know, brainwashed. They're not brainwashed. There's something being held over their head. There's some sort of blackmail material. There's some sort of something, if it's money or they're being paid or they're being promised something or something to stay on the side of wrong, you know, to just come out and defend the worst of the worst, and that's it. And I mean, you want to talk about the worst of the worst, it's not the immigrants that came from other places that are the worst of the worst. Every time there's a press conference, look. Every time there's a government meeting, look. You'll see the worst of the worst right there, right in front of your face. That's the worst of the worst, if you want to know who that is. And so if we're going after the worst of the worst, when do the agents show up and put him in handcuffs? When do they show up and put these other politicians in handcuffs? When do they show up and put these other people in handcuffs whose name was mentioned in all these files, and there's been all of these claims made against them that were never investigated? Oh, well, we didn't see enough credible evidence to go after them, and all of these things. Come on, man. Really? If someone come and made a claim like that about me, I'd be down there getting interrogated for 18 hours, asking if I was free to go or not, whether it was credible or not. And if I slipped of a tongue one time and couldn't come up with a timeline of where I was at this time or that time because I was sleeping, or my phone didn't coincide with something, or they thought they had, you know, caught me in a lie, I'd be in handcuffs and be behind bars, and they'd be saying I lied because I'm guilty. But they have legitimate people coming forward saying legitimate things, and they probably never investigated a person's timeline of where they were. They never called them in there to question them. And they probably would have never got the opportunity anyway, because these people got money and their lawyers would have come and said, we ain't going to, just like Jeffrey Epstein said there, I plead the 5th, and, you know, the 5th, the 6th, and the 14th Amendments. Well, you know, of course, according to my lawyer, that's what I should do, you know. And so they don't have to answer questions. But I think they ought to pass a law where they can bring back like sodium pentothal or something, you know, where they take these people in there and they give them a little injection. I know that's, we'd all go, well, you know, that's self-incrimination. You know, they're forcing you to incriminate yourself. Well, you know, when it has to do with murder or some kind of heinous crap, like a massive sex trafficking ring where, you know, things going on and people making claims of killing babies and forcing abortions and people disappeared and no one's ever found, and think of all the young girls that like went there and maybe put up a fight or something, or that they did some sick crap to and strangled them until they died or something, and he took them out the little trap door from his island down to the ocean and disposed of them. Where are they, never to be seen again? You know, I think on a situation like that, strap a guy down and give him a little shot of some Versed or some sodium pentothal where he can't tell a lie and he has to tell the story, you know, because, you know, I think to get to the bottom of it, know what's going on, and to put a stop to it, hey, you know, whatever. Self-incrimination, well, you know, you did the crime, do the time, dude. Incriminate yourself. I don't care. You don't want to deal like that. And if you didn't do anything wrong, you're not going to say anything. And I mean, they can make it to where, like, if you said you did something else, like I took a toothpick when I was 12, well, you can't be prosecuted for that self-incrimination there, but only the incrimination that has to do with these particular allegations. If you say something incriminating yourself, yeah, we're going to use that against you, bro. You know, I just almost don't see a point in it. I don't see the problem with it. You know, people go, well, you know, self-incrimination. You know, you have a right to not incriminate yourself, and if they give you some drug to make you talk, some truth serum, you know, then, and you talk, you've incriminated yourself. So be it. That's just where I'm at anymore. So be it. If you don't go out and you don't do things wrong, you don't have to worry about it, do you? You're not going to self-incriminate yourself about something you didn't do if you're telling the truth and you go, didn't do it, wasn't involved in it, I was here, I was there, I was doing this, I was doing that. And when they get done, they go, nope, you know, The old lie detector tests, they used to use those, but they proved to not be credible, or they couldn't, they wouldn't hold up. If somebody was a little nervous or something, they might give false positives and, or false negatives or something. But, give somebody a shot of sodium pentothal, you're not getting a false negative, And I'm just kind of down with that now. Maybe they should give every politician that before they're allowed to put their name on in the hat to run for office, where we can find out what kind of person they really are, where we don't find out later, And the problem is, as you get older, your mind does go, and you don't think as quick, and you don't remember things. And, I've had to have a lot of things refreshed to my memory, like the stuff that Donald Trump's done in the past, and some of the allegations, and some of the things that happened 30 years ago that I had forgot about. And like the first time he ran, I thought, what a joke. The Apprentice star, he's going to run for president. What a joke. Some rich guy going to run for president. That's typical. He's not going to go anywhere. No one's going to take him serious. And then, by God, they did. And so we kind of endured that. And then he talked about cheating the elections, doing this and doing that. And they pushed that narrative so hard. And if you were watching the wrong kind of news, you kind of got brainwashed into believing some of the bullshit that come out of his mouth, and it seemed logical a little bit. Now, you had a lot of other people that were being discredited, going, these radical leftists, man, they're doing this, doing that. They're the ones that cheated. They did this, they did that. Joe Biden, look at him, and he's not even president. Somebody else is running it. You heard all this craziness. And, and then they were like, we got open borders, and they're showing you pictures, all these men coming in, and they're all military-age men and all this. But then when you finally go down to the border and you actually look to see what's going on, you see, the reason they're showing all that is, if you watch the real news, they're showing women and children and all this, and they're showing some men, and they're showing family units, and they're showing this. But if you watch Fox News or Newsmax, their cameras were trained in on just the men. And when they brought them into the border, they separated. They said, all the men over here, the women with children that are your children over here, and any minors that are unaccompanied over here in this area. Well, they weren't showing you the women, the children, and the minors. They were trained in on the aisles and aisles of men that came. But a lot of those men were with the women and the other people, and they push that narrative, and you're sitting there watching it and going, man, that's crazy, dude. Why are all these men coming, man, from China and different places, man? Why has it got the border so wide open and all these people coming? But then if you put a little logic to it, you can kind of start figuring it out. But if you're not thinking logically, and you're just listening to one or two little old right-leaning news medias blow smoke up your ass, then there you are. You're kind of brainwashed into believing that. And then as things start playing out, then it's too late. This guy's in office. He was a populist candidate. He won the freaking election. And here we are, And then he totally flips the script. But there are some people that are still so brainwashed, they still believe all this bullshit. They still believe, he's the greatest president. Look what he's doing. And he's getting rid of all these bad people. Because they're still watching that same news where they're not showing the same thing that you see. They don't show the whole video of the person, the U.S. citizen, being gunned down, where you can go, hey, that wasn't right. They're showing the ones that fit their narrative and going, she tried to run him over with a car. This guy, he broke some tail light. He's a leftist. He's Antifa, And so you get misled and brainwashed into believing something else. And it's easy to do. Because some people, that's what they do. They got certain programs or certain, news correspondent people that they, the correspondent that they like to watch. Like they want to watch just Greg Kelly or they want to watch, they want to watch Jesse Waters, and they watch The Five because it's kind of funny. And they watch shows like that. And so they watch that same thing over and over every night because that's the only news they get. And they start believing that narrative because that's the only narrative that they're freaking preaching. They're not showing the truth. They're not showing anything that would hurt their great candidate, And what's funny is I can remember a time when they were all trashing on him. And they were all making fun of him, just like half the people in Canada. Marco Rubio. Marco, little hands, Marco got little hands, little Marco. And Marco going, man, he bankrupted casinos, dude. He's filed bankruptcy. He's stole. He's cheated on his taxes. You know, he's the worst candidate in the world when they were both vying for the same spot. And now that Trump's there, Marco's the Secretary of State, among many other jobs. And he's the great, you know, President Trump's the greatest president. And what? Come on, man. What happened to being mortal enemies, you know? It's all just smoke up the ass of the American people's all it is, dude. They're all in cahoots, and they all protect one another. So the truth is, you're not ever going to find out what's in the Donald Trump files. Oops, I mean the Epstein files. Because, you know, to me, you know, when I was younger, I hung out with people and they like to steal things. And when you hang out with people who like to steal things, before you know it, you're going to end up in jail too for having stolen things, because you're only good as the company you keep. And if I was trying to say, no, I wasn't a part of it, well, I didn't know what was going on, well, this and that and the other, and they're going to go, well, the evidence leads to the fact that everywhere they were, you were, and you were always best friends with them, and you hung out with them, and your name was mentioned 38,000 times in all the files we've gathered against these guys. So, you know, the truth about it is, you knew what was going on, you were probably involved. Birds of a feather flock together, right? So you're only as good as the company you keep. So I heard someone say that his name was mentioned more in the files than Jesus' name in the Bible. Now come on, man. Like, and this is half the files, and his name was mentioned 38,000 times. And if you read some of the complaints and some of the testimony that people have literally given testimony going, he did this to me, he forced himself on me, you're not going to hear that on Fox News or Newsmax. Never. Never will you. And it's like, what does he have on them that they won't come out and give the news? Because that's news. If someone made a claim, whether it's false or not, that's newsworthy. You can go, hey, now we going to put a little tag on here. This is this person's claim. Now, we're not going to say that he did or didn't, but this is a claim that's being made. It's newsworthy. And this claim said that he forced himself on me. Blah, 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 blah. And they're going to tell about it, but you don't hear it. You're not going to hear it. What does he have on them? What is he holding over their head? What kind of blackmail material does he have over their head? Because that's the game. If you read the Epstein files and you listen to the victims and you pay attention to all what's going on in that episode, that telenovela, the soap opera of the Epstein files or Donald Trump files, whatever you want, that's their game. They had cameras everywhere. They were videotaping and recording everything, and they would set these people up with underage women or set them up doing all kinds of vile things or dressing like women or carrying out their fantasies, and they had it all recorded. And then when Jeffrey needed a little money, he needed a political favor, he needed anything like that, he got whatever he needed because he had blackmail material against them. And that's the game. And him and Epstein were best friends. He said they were. For 10 years we were best friends. I think they were best friends up until Donald Trump got scared that Jeffrey Epstein might talk to save himself because they had him dead to rights and there wasn't no saving him anymore. And had him killed. Because I still don't believe that he committed suicide. And we can call that conspiracy theories. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But it seems most logical. You don't have to stretch your imagination very far to know that all of these high up powerful people and prime ministers and secretary ministers and foreign ministers and elected officials and high up rich people that were prominent people that run big companies, Bill Gates, people like that, were being blackmailed by this guy, and he had all the evidence against him. And they didn't want him to talk. So it's not a far stretch of the imagination to go, man, they shut him up. So, who was president back when oh, wait a minute, it was Donald Trump. Who controlled the Justice Department? Wait a minute, that was Donald Trump. Who controlled the FBI? back then when they raided and did all this and took all that. Oh, wait, that'd be Donald Trump. Hey, do we remember that Donald Trump took a lot of classified files with him to Mar-a-Lago, and they raided to get the files when Joe Biden was president, and they found all these files? I want to know what's in those files. I want to know. I want to see those files. I want to see the videos. I want to see the evidence from those files and where those files came from. And were they national security files or were they Epstein files? How many of them were destroyed? Why are we going through? Why are they coming to Mar-a-Lago and raiding and looking for stuff and going through my wife's, underwear drawers and things like that? Because they're looking for the evidence. And they say, well, why didn't the Democrats bring a case? Maybe because they didn't have the evidence. Maybe they come to look for the evidence, but it all wasn't there. So all they can do is go, well, we're just going to charge him for having classified documents. He had these along with those. We could try to charge him with that. But maybe they had a hard-on for him and they wanted him real bad. Man, I don't know. Because I just really think all the time about things, and it just goes so much deeper than what I think people are really talking about. I don't think you hear it on CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS. I don't even think you hear it on there. I don't think you hear it on any news media. PBS, none of them. Sky News, none of it. I don't care. I don't think you hear the validity of what is probably actually the real true story behind all of it, So, and these politicians get up there, well, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Well, we're doing depositions. We're doing this, doing that. You're just going through the motions to make it look like, hey, we're trying to do something about this and we're trying to get on the side of right. Hey, we're going to pass a bill to protect the victims and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But what kind of evidence do they have over their head? What kind of blackmail material do we have over them to kind of not do a thorough investigation? Make sure you scratch these names off the file. It's just like a total shit show, man. It is a total, complete cover-up. All of it. And that's just the way I look at it. And so then that brings me back to my question. Is it really the Epstein files? Or is it the Epstein Donald Trump files? His name's sure mentioned in there a lot. Where's the indictments? Where's the subpoenas to testify and answer to the questions of this girl made this allegation, so explain to me. Where was you at that time? What was going on? You know what's going to happen. He's going to plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth. But maybe he won't. Or maybe he is just enough deranged and his mind's messed up just a little bit that he will slip up and tell a little bit of the truth. Because I really feel like there's something wrong with him. He's not on his game like he was before. He was on his game pretty good before and became the populist candidate. He was doing all right, bro. But he's not so much there anymore. I think there's some cognitive decline there, And I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or what. We need to quit fighting amongst ourselves, and we need to gang up on the government and hold them accountable. I don't care if they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents, or what. The American people, they work for us. The American people, we're the taxpayers, and they work for us. And we all need to get in cahoots and gather up and quit letting them divide us and split us up and all get on the same side of right and hold them accountable for all this bullshit. And hold every single one of them accountable. I don't care if it's the biggest scandal in the world ever. They need to be held accountable. And that's just kind of where I'm at. Curious what y'all think, Curious what your opinions are, Write in the comments, give me your opinions. I've always said it once, I'll say it again. That's what we all say, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, But I'd like for people to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build it. Don't know if anybody even cares about what I got to say. I do come up with a little bit of smart shit to say once in a while, I guess, but maybe some of it just sounds like a bunch of rhetoric. But there's a lot of that going around nowadays. So but I bet if we all got our heads together and got in the comments and talked and cussed and discussed it out, I bet we could figure out what the truth was eventually, or use we don't have to stretch our imaginations too far to figure out what's really going on here. I mean, I've really been watching a lot of podcasters and different people in news media and some of the things. You know, I've went and tried to look through some of the files, but I'm generally driving, you know, so I mean, it's kind of hard to read files and go through all that when you're cruising down the highway. It's probably not the safest thing to do, but anyway, so, you know, like I say, like and subscribe. You know, I'd appreciate it if we can all build this channel together and make it do something. I work every day for a living. I pay my bills. It's not about money to me, but the more people I get out to, you know, the more opinions I get, the more people comment and stuff, and I get different ideas. And, you know, sometimes maybe it's just a coping mechanism when you're looking around at what's going on in the world. You're like, oh my God, dude, you know, I got to do something to release some of this pent-up frustration, some of this TDS, because, buddy, I have it. I don't like to be lied to. I don't like people playing games with me, you know, and I hate when someone uses Christianity and religion and things like that and tries to use God for their personal gain and all this stuff. You know, it makes me angry, dude. It builds up inside of me, and it's, you know, it's going to make me deranged, all right, yeah. And like, yeah, I'd have Trump derangement syndrome because I personally, and it's my personal belief, and people can believe how they want, and I'm not pointing fingers and saying it's true, but it's just my belief system that I believe that he's a predator. I believe that I don't have to stretch my imagination that far to say that he probably violated young girls. Why does a 50-something-year-old man need a little teeny pageant? You know, if he was walking around talking a little funny and that's what he had done his whole life, and like, oh, I just love to see the little girls dance, you know, dressed in their little dresses and fixed up nice and trying to win the pageant and earn some money for college and maybe get a magazine cover, and I just want to help people do good. If he'd have been doing that his whole life, okay, you know, I'll give him that. But the fact that his best friend was trafficking girls that wanted to be models and in pageants and all of these things, and he's been around him and he has to know what's going on, and he sees that, and then he goes out and opens his own little pageant to get his own little group of girls to get on board, bro. That's what it was for. It was to get on board. It's not a stretch of the imagination, you know, and I just believe that. Maybe I'm wrong. Then prove me wrong. Show me the evidence, because at this point, you know, I've seen a lot of evidence that tells me if I was in a jury and I went back there, I'd just walk back there and go, man, y'all want to order lunch and eat now before we give them our verdict, or, you know, so we can get a free lunch, or you just want to go ahead and give them the verdict and I'll buy lunch and let's get on out of here. Because I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I think guilty. You know, beyond a reasonable doubt, from what I've seen, the testimonies, you put everything together, you know, and it's there, dude. Go to straight to jail, don't pass go, don't collect $200, dude, guilty. That's where I'm at. That's my decision that I've already formed. So, I mean, you know, come with the comments, come with the evidence, prove me wrong. I mean, give me something legitimate to look at to change my mind. I'll look at it. I'll always look at anything. But I just believe that he was deeply involved in it. I believe that he's a sick individual. I believe that he's racist. Everything points to that. And I believe that everything he does is to whiten up our country. And he's not making America great again. He's making America go backwards, back to when we were in a time where it was a shameful time for our country. And the truth is, we are the laughing stock of the world. Look around. Man, we are straight up the laughing stock of the world, man. So, it's pretty sick. It's a sick world. And he's one of the sickest that I've seen in it, you know. I mean, and so, yeah, TDS, you're right. When I hear that man talk, I throw up in my mouth. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a bold-faced lie. And I've been criticized and had my own words thrown back in my face about praying, going, well, I hope he can do something and fix our country. And, you know, I pray to God that he brought somebody that acts like they want to fix America and make it great again and stuff. And I bought into some of that bullshit, you know, because I was watching the wrong news media, I guess. and I was kind of brainwashed into it. But at least I'm an honest guy, and I can admit that I was wrong, and I can admit that, you know, I made a mistake thinking that he was going to do anything and that I believed into his bullshit. So you can't criticize me now, since I've changed and went the other direction, and I realized that he's the worst thing that happened to our country, and I'm admitting it, and I'm telling it, and I'm preaching it, and I'm laying it all out there. So, you know, that's it. People can criticize and go, well, we tried to tell you so, we tried to tell you so. Well, nobody was really trying to tell me, because I wasn't in a place where I was watching anything where people were saying that, you know. So when people go on there, and there's a lot of good people that have, you know, told the truth the whole time, and you can go back and look at their podcasts, and you can watch their news media, and they can tell you even Kamala Harris, somebody's the worst thing ever happened to our country. He's racist, he's this, he's that. She was right. She was 100% right. But I wasn't in a place where I was listening to her say that, because I never really listened to what she said. I heard little clips and little snippets of a controlled narrative to where they made her look foolish. They made everything she say seem just radical, crazy, and that was their whole agenda, and that's what they did, and they fooled a lot of people. Now, at this point, at least I'm one of those people that I'm not fooled anymore, and I see through the bullshit. I see what he is actually doing, and it's terrible. I see that he's destroying our country. I full on see that he's a racist. I full on see that there's no stretch to think that he's done a lot of nasty crap. There's no doubt that he's a war criminal. There's no doubt that he has wiped his ass with our Constitution, and I'm against that. You won't hear me going, oh, he's the greatest president. Well, y'all don't know what you're talking about. You won't see me still supporting on him, because I'm on the side of right. And I thought he was right before, but I realized he's not, and I'm on the side of right. So I've gotten away from that, and I know he's not on the side of right, so I'm totally against everything he's doing, to the point I'm deranged. So there you go, I have Trump derangement syndrome. But he created that. He created that. And had I been in a scenario where I heard anything different, and it made me think clear enough to go look and remember and do all this, the things of Donald Trump, I would have never supported him probably. But I was not in that environment. My environment that I was in, and the people that, you know, I was always around, and the truck stop that I went into because of my profession and everything, everyone that I was ever around was going, he's going to save our country, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I mean, you have to admit, there's 80-something million people that believe that. You're not going to find very many truck drivers that don't still worship Donald Trump in the profession that I'm in, over-the-road drivers, because most of them are, you know, from that blue-collar background and stuff, and he's going to make us more money, he's going to make fuel prices lower, and he's going to make groceries lower, and he's going to put a chicken in every pot in the car in every garage. And they're still going to believe that. Well, they're still believing that they're just going to have short-term pain, you know. But I got out of that sect of people a little bit and started doing a little research when I started seeing him doing some of the dumb, draconian, stupid shit he was doing, and going, man, I don't like this, man, he's fucking up. And then I started really paying attention, and I started seeing other things, and now I get it thrown in my face. Well, we tried to tell you so. No, you never told me nothing, because I was never in a place where you could tell me. So you can't blame me, you know. You can't blame me saying, hey, I tried to tell you so, because I was never in a place where anyone was telling me that, because I wasn't in that group of people. I wasn't a part of the DNC, and I didn't watch that news, you know, because I was always told, oh, them people are crazy, they're radical, they're leftists. They're radical leftists. So I didn't listen to what they had to say necessarily. And I wasn't a real news guy that much anyway. And anytime there was news on, it was Fox News or Newsmax or something, the places I was. And then if you did catch a little snippet of the news of CNN or anyone else that was saying anything different, like you were at a truck stop or you were in a store or you were somewhere where the TV was on, sitting there having breakfast, and they said that, in your mind you told yourself, oh, that's the fucking radical leftists. Because that's what you've had preached at you. So I never really listened, and I never really was that exposed to anything but just that far-right ideology. Does that mean I wasn't intelligent? No, not necessarily. I didn't care about politics because I thought whether you were Democrat, Republican, Independent, or what, you were a crook. And that's still the way I see most all politicians. They're in it for themselves. There's very few that are doing anything that's not going to promote their own wealth and their own power. And that's it. And I still believe that. And the minute they're all on this one side, even Democrats or Republicans or whatever, they're all on this one side until someone dangles that carrot in front of them, and then they vote. I watched them pass the big, ugly, nasty, disgusting bill, and you can't tell me that there wasn't some Democrats reached across there and did it because they got a few little handouts. They got a little something. They dangled that carrot in front of them, so they reached across the aisle and they voted for that disgusting thing, piece of trash, legislature, and that's just what they do. And I've watched that my whole life, so I don't trust any of them. Didn't like any of them. Didn't really care about politics. But now that I see what's going on, it's made me more aware of it, and it's made me more involved in politics and watching different things and different podcasts and all these different things to try to get as much information and try to get to the bottom of the truth of what's going on. And I've found the truth. And the truth is Donald Trump is disgusting. He's sick. He's sacrilegious. He's satanic. And there's a special place in hell for him when he leaves this world where they will turn up the flames 50,000 degrees and that's it. And I will say that. You know, he's a racist, and most of the people that follow him are racist. I have family members that I never really thought were racist, but now I've learned they're fucking racist. I've learned there's something not right with them, and I would like to believe that they're just like me. They're just uninformed and they never get anything from anywhere else, and maybe one of these days they'll see what's going on. But at this point, if you're still supporting Donald Trump after this year in office that we just went through, there's something wrong with you, or you are a radical, far-right, extreme, MAGA, sacrilegious, racist moron. And that's it. After seeing what's happened. And that's it. You're not patriotic because you can shit on somebody shits on the Constitution and it doesn't upset you. You know? You can't say you're not a racist because you will condone his bullshit racist ideology. You know? And you can't say that he's right, that he's great for our country, that he's getting things, prices down, and that, our economy's doing so great. I don't care about the stock market. I don't care if that son of a bitch hits 70,000 all-time high. It doesn't affect you and me that's out here working because we're not millionaires that have our money in the stock market. It doesn't affect my bank account when my money comes in and it goes straight out as fast as it comes in because I have all these expenses and they're higher than they've ever been, and my wages are the same as they've always been. They haven't went up. So he can't bullshit me. And when I sit and watch him fire the people that are giving him realistic jobs numbers and market analysis and stuff, and then put people in place that will blow smoke up the American people's ass and tell him everything's good and do all this, he's trying to force them to lower interest rates so that it makes him look better because the midterms are coming. Dude, I'm on to their game. I'm down with the politics now. I'm paying attention. I'm not just getting all my information from one side. I'm listening to what everybody's saying. And I'm not letting the people on the left indoctrinate me. And I'm not letting the people on the right indoctrinate me. I'm listening to what everybody says. I'm doing research for myself and I'm finding the truth. So, you know, that's where we're at now because I chose to not ever be fooled again, you know, by the bullshit. And so, you know, it'll cost me family members and friends and people like that. So be it, bro. Because if anybody after this year is still supporting him and they want to discount me because I don't, then, and because of how terrible I feel about him and what he's doing to this country, then we're probably not good friends anyway. We're not going to be good friends. Anybody that promotes racism, anybody that's okay with that, anybody that's okay with protecting a bunch of pedophiles, then enjoy your life. I don't want to be friends with you. And that's just basically where we're at. So it's like, unfriend me. I don't care. it doesn't hurt my feelings because I'm not going to be a part of that. You're good as the company you keep. And the truth is, bro, I'm not wanting to keep that kind of company. So that's where we're at. I got to figure out where I'm going here. Yeah, I know where I'm going. But anyway, so I guess I've had my little rant and I've done my little show for today. But, tell me what you think. Make some comments or whatever. I mean, if you want to ridicule me because I used to think he was all right and that he might do something great for our country, that's fine. I've had my fair share of that. I'm getting probably more ridiculed from the other direction by friends and family members and stuff because of my ideology being so against him now, and they're so brainwashed that they still believe that he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread. So, I guess I'll just take it from both sides, but I'm going to be on the side of right. So whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. Criticize me. Say, hey, we tried to tell you. Well, no, I never heard you say that because I didn't listen to the things and the platforms that you were on. So there we are. But I do now. I get it from everywhere, and I look and I try to figure it out for myself and figure out who's telling the truth and try to find some evidence. But there's a whole bunch of evidence being covered up right now. There's a whole lot of it. And it's ironic to me that people can come to me and they can use this ideology and go, well, I'm glad Donald Trump's going to get all these people out of our country. I have grandchildren and nieces and nephews and stuff, and I don't want these killers and rapists running around. But yet, that's not what we're going after. We're going after the guy that's mowing at the IHOP. We're going after people that go out and work. I thought these people didn't work. They were living off the system, but you're going to their jobs to pick them up. You're going to Home Depot where they're looking for work to pick them up. Come on, man. Like, I see through that bullshit. How can you not see through it? It's like right in front of your face. But it wasn't so blatant before, but it is now. It is now. Before, he was just a typical politician to me. He was corrupt, just like everybody else. But now I see the depravity of him, and like how he's so much worse than any politician. So yeah, but it's like you're all worried about, your nieces and nephews and your grandchildren and stuff going down the street because of all these illegals and they're pedophiles and killers and rapists, but you're supporting one of the biggest ones. His name was mentioned 38,000 times. Women have come forward and said he did terrible things to them. And no one investigated, no one said anything. And because Fox News says, oh my God, that's ridiculous, Donald Trump wouldn't do that, you believe it. So there it is. I hope that one day he gets held accountable in this life or the next. It'd be great if it was in this life. But I hope there's not people like that on the jury. I hope there's like people that are smart enough to kind of look at things for themselves and go, hey, here's some pretty strong evidence here that says, hey, he's a moron. Let's convict him. So, but anyway, like I say, like and subscribe. Tell me what you think. Let me hear your comments. You can dog me, you can rag me, you can make fun of me because I was brainwashed into believing some stupidity, but at least I'm not brainwashed anymore. I pulled my brain out and washed it with a freaking wire brush and carburetor cleaner now. So, I'm smarter now. But anyway, y'all have a good afternoon. God bless.